Please stand by. Good day and welcome to the Capacity Building Center for States National Foster Care Month webinar, Supporting Caregivers While Promoting Positive Outcomes. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Ms. Rachel Thomas. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. As was previously mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. It's interactive and includes polling questions. All attendees will be muted at this time, but if you have any technical difficulties during the presentation, please contact me, Rachel Thomas, at the email address listed on the screen. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please send us a message through the chat box. If we are unable to address all questions, we will answer the remaining questions in an FAQ-style handout that will be sent soon. This webinar does feature a video later on. When that time comes, if you are dialed in by phone, please unmute your computer speakers. The sound is being streamed from your computer or device. We will also have the PowerPoint and other resources available for you at the end of the presentation. Additionally, at the end of the event, there will be an evaluation survey for you to provide your feedback. If you could, please take a moment to fill that out. We'd love your participation. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Marcelli.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Marcelli. I'm a Program Area Manager with the Capacity Building Center for States, and I would like to introduce Taffy Campaign, who is the National Foster Care Specialist for the Children's Bureau. Taffy?
Thanks, Jennifer. So good afternoon, and welcome to our National Foster Care Month webinar, Supporting Caregivers While Promoting Positive Outcomes. My name is Taffy Campaign. I'm the National Foster Care Specialist at the Children's Bureau at the Administration for Children and Families. And this year, our National Foster Care Month campaign is titled Empowering Caregivers and Strengthening Families. And we highlight the wonderful contributions of all who serve as caregivers to children and youth in foster care, especially foster parents, who are such a critical team member. I'd like to thank today's presenters, a group of former and current state and county child welfare agencies that had or have 5-year discretionary diligent recruitment grants working to improve the recruitment, the supports, and services to caregivers, including foster parents, relatives, and kinship caregivers. These agencies have developed comprehensive and innovative programs to improve placement stability and reunification of children and youth, while working more closely with biological families, and we also work to increase foster parent retention. The Children's Bureau is very excited to have them share their stories with you today, and would especially like to thank the caregivers that are joining us today, both as attendees and especially as presenters. For those caregivers that are presenting, your honest information about your journey with these agencies and in working with children and families will help a lot of us learn more about your needs, your strengths, and the challenges of this work, and ultimately to provide you better services, so that we sincerely thank you for being able to join us today and your willingness to share a part of yourself with us. We've got a lot of really, really great information that's going to be shared from 3 different agencies and a number of caregivers. And so I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer for the bulk of our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Taffy. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. Just a quick agenda for our time together. We are going to quickly go over the introductions and objectives for today's webinar. And then you're going to hear from New Mexico on their Step Up Recruiting and Supporting Caregivers program. And then you'll hear from Allegheny County, Pennsylvania on their Family Support Network. And then we'll hear from New York on their Fostering Futures program. And then we'll have some opportunity for question and answer. I can see you all are doing a great job finding the participant chat. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in there, and we'll put them in a queue and make sure that we have some time at the end to ask the presenters any questions that you may have. Okay, so moving on, we are going to introduce folks that you are going to hear from today. You already heard from Taffy and myself. From New Mexico, you are going to hear from Isela Burciaga, Renee Fitz, and Joy Monho. And then Allegheny County, Tawanda Clark, Heather Blair, Nancy Cox, Hank Lipinski, and Chris Rather. And then from New York, Lee Lounsbury, Meredith Osa, and Marcia Anderson. All right. Okay, so just quickly, some objectives for today. We're hoping that we'll be able to identify best practices to empower and strengthen caregiver voice, increase knowledge of strategies to engage caregivers in program development and emphasize their unique voice, increase the awareness of the importance of caregiver support programs to increase the partnership and promote positive outcomes. We also plan to increase awareness of the importance of including caregivers in program development and increase awareness of products and resources to support caregiver-oriented programming. And then, obviously, as Taffy said, super important, we want to highlight and celebrate the experience of caregivers as a valuable partner, and you'll hear from a few throughout the day. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Isela, who will get us started.
And thank you for having New Mexico be a part of this wonderful webinar. My name is Isela Burciaga, and I am the Foster Care and Adoptions Bureau Chief in New Mexico. My team is Renee Fitz. She is the Foster Care Program Manager, and Joy Monge. She is one of our wonderful foster care providers in the southwest region of the state. And I would like to begin by discussing or just addressing the mission of the agency. For the Children, Youth, and Families Department, our mission is to improve the quality of life for our children. And we do this by following 6 specific operating principles. But the first one is the one that speaks to all of the work that we do. And it is to be kind, to be respectful, and to be responsive. So that is how we begin the work that we do at every facet of any particular situation. New Mexico received a Diligent Recruitment Grant, was the recipient of in the second cluster, of a Diligent Recruitment Grant in 2010. We sought this grant in order to address the key needs in the child welfare system in New Mexico. Within those 5 years of working very diligently with our state, with our stakeholders, with our national partners, we created and we addressed 3 different areas in the state. We look for a multifaceted and grassroots recruitment strategy for foster and adoptive parents. We develop, and we research for innovative approaches to recruit and retain diverse resource families. And we develop strategies that improve customer service methods. Again, the 3 components were the first and foremost, and is the umbrella for everything we do in the state, is the customer service. We're addressing the needs to better reach, to better serve, and to better retain foster families. We also, like I mentioned, recruitment and retention of resource families, addressing the needs of those of the foster and adoptive and kinship families. That's a big area of that we're working on in New Mexico. And of course, the third one was our concurrent planning families. In the 5 years that we work with, with this Diligent Recruitment Grant, and all the work that we did and everything that we put forth, there were 2 specific programs that we sustain, and we are very proud to say that we continue to enhance this. They just keep evolving, and they are the outcomes for our children and family, I am hopeful, will be great in the years to come. With that, Renee, will you discuss the next program?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody, or in New Mexico anyway. Good afternoon to the rest of you. So I'm going to get started with letting you know that when New Mexico began working on our sustainability plan that Isela mentioned for our Diligent Recruitment Project, we quickly identified that retention and support of our potential foster homes was key to improving our success in recruitment. We developed a support system that would help guide, mentor, and keep families engaged by helping them to experience a reduced length of time in achieving licensure. So some examples of how we did this and how we started to make gains in this area is we first evaluated our intake process and redefined our job roles for our recruitment staff to essentially handhold families through our processes. So now that came of our becoming our navigators, who use various forms of communication with our families. They do things like text messaging, and they provide emails, phone calls, and written correspondence with families. They are available to these families also during non-traditional hours, and they assist them with providing tips and tools for self-advocacy and help promote and facilitate assistance with training reminders, accommodations on scheduling, paperwork, follow-up communication with the families, and overall support, just having been in those shoes in the past for many of them. They are also available to assist our newly licensed families with handling their first placements. They offer support services to help alleviate anxiety, questions and parenting tips to help families from becoming overwhelmed upon their new role. Things like how do they even set up a room for a foster child, things like that. How do they utilize a clothing voucher, items like that. So that has been very helpful for our families. As part of the navigator's role in working with prospective families, they work to establish a relationship with the families. They do this by making at least 3 contacts to educate them about licensing requirements, application assistance, and they continue to support these families throughout their licensing and first placement. So each of our counties have county-based recruitment teams now, where they are working on developing what we call county-based recruitment plans for our state. During this time, our navigators take an active role on these teams, and they often bring ideas from a foster parent perspective. Our navigators also work to help our families understand what a home study is, just because that sometimes we use that jargon in social work field. They may not know what it is, and like say they're going to have to go through a home study. And so they really work to assist them with feelings and concerns regarding this process in effort to help them avoid becoming overwhelmed. Our navigators provide communication about upcoming training availability. They provide frequent reminders to attend or work with the family to achieve timely completion, to help shortening licensing time frames, because in the past we have struggled with that, getting families to complete the full processes. So they really work hands-on by arranging one-on-one trainings for them. We now as an agency offer a blended online training curriculum that we are working through, and or they help achieve that training in another community in our state for the family. And again, overall, our navigators are available to offer support when the need arises for our families. You know, to be late at night, they have a question that came up to them, they can really provide that support role for them. Okay, so as we go on to our next slide, I wanted to kind of introduce a little bit about our evaluation and what we've learned. So since our data collection on this program began, which is approximately 12 months ago, we have both contractors and employees within the Navigator program. So they have documented licensure for 91 families statewide thus far. And then the average total days from application to licensure is 139. So this is fairly consistent among the different regions in our state. We have 5 different regions, and our goal is to have these families licensed within 120 days or less. So as an agency, we are not quite yet where we want to be, and we still have a lot of work to do, but we are happy that we are now starting to see some success in reducing those licensing timeframes and actually having more families stay the course in achieving licensure due to this support that we're now offering these families. So, and then just to give you a little bit more feedback on this, we have had, over the past couple months, I have personally been contacting families who have been currently going through our licensing process to just obtain some feedback on their communications with their navigator. And so I decided to ask them 3 simple questions. those question number one being, do they know who their navigator is? Often families get so overwhelmed with all the people involved that they become involved with, so that's the number one question I ask. Number two, has their navigator been available or attempted to make contact to offer support and answer questions about the licensing process? And then number three, do they feel that their communication with their navigator has been too much, too little, or just right? So in the random areas of the state that I've surveyed, all the feedback I've received is positive. They knew their navigator's name. They felt that they have been the most helpful in their opinions, and most felt that the communication level has been just right. So and also another form of feedback and data that we're currently working on is a survey of newly licensed families who have just gone out. It's just gone out through Survey Monday probably about a couple weeks ago. We don't have any results just yet, but the feedback we are trying to learn on this survey is regarding their customer service experience with the licensing process and assessment of their navigator experience and knowledge, and if they felt that their navigator was knowledgeable regarding the licensing requirements, processes, and messaging of how foster and adoption is with our agency is being portrayed to the families.
So with that, I would like to pose a polling question to our audience, and please feel free to write your answers. And the question is, what are the most common types of support that caregivers have asked for in your program? What do you see out there? Just take a couple of minutes to answer the question. That would be great. And Renee will be able to read a couple of them from her screen.
Okay, it looks like some of the answers coming in are, let's see, respite care, easier access to training, ongoing education, communication, which is, I would say, a very huge one, honesty, and if they are applicable for placements, especially if they are a relative, discipline training, support, various ones, and that was on question number one. On our second question, some of the results have been, what steps has your agency taken to increase the resources to provide the support? Let's see. Targeted recruitment has been a big one. Online webinars, lending library from some of the other states, community partnerships, and these are all very, very good and definitely a piece of what our Navigator program has been also trying to capture in that program.
Thank you, everyone, for your responses. And to follow up on the Navigator program that Renee just talked about, but an additional support, which is also was born and was created out of the Diligent Recruitment Project we had in New Mexico, we have now something that is called Project Revive, which is an emotional first aid for foster parents. So one of the things that we learned when we were going through the grants, but also just throughout even my career within the child welfare system, is what families talk about is just that grief and loss support when children move from one home to another, when they move back to their homes for reunification or adoption, whatever it may be. Sometimes we, as a child welfare system, if you will, tend to believe that our families can just go on, move on, and take another placement. We all know that that is not true. So foster families have been very open and very clear about we need somebody on our side to kind of hear me, to hear my children's grief and loss because, the placement that I had, whatever became of that placement. So we listened to that. We learned that through our diligent recruitment grant, and then we sustain it. And one of the things that I should have mentioned earlier, but I didn't, is that we did not receive any new funding. The funding that we had, we just repurposed it. We know we're in situations of budgets when they're not growing, so we just have continued to do with what we have. So with our Project Revive, our emotional first aid, we wanted to create an integrated system at serving our foster families at the very initial point of entry. When the family calls our hotline or even walks in and talks to one of our navigators, we want to immediately set them up with some sort of support, whether they have experienced a grief and loss yet or not, get them ready because they will experience that. So the objective of our Project Revive is to provide that support system to our foster families to create those positive relationships that ultimately will result in higher retention in foster parents. The goal is to create an improved support system for our families, develop opportunities for families to gather, to share information, to create their own network of resources. And one thing, because New Mexico has a big Hispanic population, we wanted to make sure that our services are provided both in English and in Spanish. Because of this integrated system, we're starting to provide those services up front, and we also have the post-adoption services. So we see this circle of support that is really just a circle and it doesn't end. So far, the project is relatively new to us. We had an RFP done, and we are within the first year of the project, so it's relatively new. But right now, we are serving approximately 350 families statewide, and we just expect that the number will grow. So Joy Monge, who's one of our foster parents, a recipient of this particular program, who has had experience, she will be talking to you a little bit about her own experience regarding the program and what some of the key objectives and supports are.
Yes, hi, I'm Joy, and I started off as a relative placement. And honestly, it was through Project Revive and that my husband and I both felt that we had enough support to just go ahead and continue fostering after our very first placement was returned home. And I just want to touch briefly on the Navigator as what that really does for us foster families here in New Mexico is it offers a voice for us as foster parents. If we have questions, we can ask them. If we have anything that happens with our kids in the middle of the night, we don't know what to do, we have somebody that we can call and say, hey, this is what we need right now. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for foster parents to have a voice, an avenue inside of the foster care program. So as far as Project Revive, it's really great because it's offered regionally. So if my husband travels, he can go to a different region and get the training or anything that he needs. It also offers a different perspective for us if we want to hear a voice somewhere else. And you just learn. It's a great opportunity for foster parents all over to get together, and we learn from each other. So it's just a very good opportunity for us to get together and express our problems, our difficulties, and really network with each other. And that's the basic of what foster parents need is support. We do have a Facebook page that also kind of helps, late night you can't sleep, your kids going through an issue or a problem or a dilemma, or if you just even need to vent, there's always people there willing to respond back to you. As far as the grief and loss training that is provided through Project Revive, it's extremely important, and on almost every facet it is given to, through all the trainings, some part of grief and loss, because it's very important to understand what your family goes through as foster parents, what your biological kids are going through, whether they're going through transition back home for reunification, whether it's adoption. There is grief and loss, and especially for the foster kids that come in, it's very important to understand what they're feeling and what they're going through. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that Project Revive offers is the grief and loss training. And while we're receiving training, they do all provide child care for your biological kids and for your foster kids. And the greatest thing about that is they also provide training on a lower scale level for the children. So while you're receiving training on grief and loss, they may be receiving some training in a way that children understand. So when you guys come out of there and you're headed home, you have something to really connect with and an understanding of how to express yourselves and what you may be going through. It's just a great place for us to get together, and it's really helped me to understand, and it's helped me to continue foster parenting, which I may not have done otherwise. So I'd like to just commend New Mexico on putting those two programs together because they've really helped me as far as becoming a better foster parent. Giselle, if you'd like to go ahead and continue with the raft.
Yeah, I'm just going to say one thing that may answer some of the questions that are on the chat box. Some of the supports were as concrete as what Joy described as the child care. A lot of the times the foster parents couldn't come to trainings or gatherings because there was no child care if they had 4 kids in their home. So now we partner with offices through the contract to provide those support systems for families. Like Joy mentioned, the Facebook page. So those are some of the activities that provide that first aid to families. So I hope I answered that question. So moving on to our foster and adopted parent pre-service training. This is going to be brief, but in the last, it hasn't even been 12 months, we sought to develop a blended learning for our foster parents. Continue to hear we need to start doing some things online, we need to do this in the evenings, whatnot. So we took our material, what we had, we expanded the material, and we are now have what we call a blended curriculum for our new families. It's really a repository of parent education content. It includes concepts. It includes all the must-know, the must-have type of information, the trauma, the teens, the social media, anything of that sort is included in our pre-service training. So briefly, what it looks like itself is that we have 2 face-to-face sessions, 3 hours each. Session 1 is a welcome, and there's certain items that are discussed, and then families are able to sign up online and get their passwords and whatnot. And then there are 4 lessons that addresses parenting options. Who are our kids in care? Who are our youth? Our youth that they are not always like to be called children, so they want to be called youth. So they have their own particular lesson, and then our foster and adoptive families. And then at the end of the session, of the training, they have another 3 hours. They come back face-to-face. There are surveys for each of the sessions, and this can be done. The purpose of this was to create a new method, an additional method of providing those services and support to our families that is not always in the classroom from 8 to 5 the same day every month. So this is to be used. It can be on Saturdays, it can be on the evenings, it can be on the weekdays, it can be on a combination, it can be a one-on-one. So we are, again, in the very first, it hasn't even been a year of this, we rolled it out statewide. We're doing evaluation, and from the information that we have gathered thus far, families seem to like it. It seems to be convenient and getting to the point. So we feel very blessed to be able to be doing all of these initiatives, again, with the ultimate goal of improving the quality of life for our children. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for participating and listening to our presentation here in New Mexico. You will see our contact information if you want additional details. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to my colleague from Allegheny County, Tawanda Clark.
Good afternoon, and to our West Coast listeners, good morning. My name is Tawanda Clark, Allegheny County Department of Human Services, Office of Children, Youth, and Families for Teens Training Specialist, specifically under the Diligent Recruitment Grant. I am excited to be on the line with you today because I have an opportunity to share with participants from Allegheny Family Network the success stories that they have as a result of the work that we've been doing here in Allegheny County. And that success not only lies on the fact that they understand the work that we do on a professional level, but they understand it intrinsically because they have themselves gone through many of the challenges that foster parents go through, and they are now champions. So they'll be sharing their stories with you today. You're going to hear from Chris Rather, who's going to speak specifically to the supports. Heather Blair is going to close us out. She's going to share with you the data. We have our foster parent, Ms. Cox, who has over 20 years experience in the foster care arena, and she is going to really talk about what it means to be successful and how she's been supported by Allegheny Family Network. And I, with great excitement, pass the torch to Hank Lipinski, who is going to start us off by giving us an overview of Allegheny Family Network. Stephen Covey, one of my favorite authors, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective Families, says in his book that we have to begin with the end in mind. And I really believe that Allegheny County has done this with Allegheny Family Network, because in order to sustain our forever homes, we have to not only think about recruitment, but we also have to think about what supports our families need. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Hank Lipinski and let him give you an overview of what Allegheny Family Network is all about.
Thank you very much, Twanda. In the late 1990s, Allegheny County obtained federal funding to develop and implement a system of care in 5 communities for families raising a child with complex mental health issues. Through this initiative, it became clear that family involvement has a measurable and positive impact on child and family outcomes. As part of this initiative, 15 family members representing the ethnic and socio-economic diversity of Allegheny County obtained input from over 300 additional family members and developed a strategic plan to establish an independent family organization to support and partner with families rearing children who have emotional and mental health needs in order to improve their quality of life. With initial startup funding from Allegheny County, Allegheny Family Network was formed as a 501c3 in 2004. The board of directors was recruited, bylaws were developed. It was determined that the majority of the board members would be family members and that all AFN staff would be family members as well. In 2007, the first executive director was hired. In 2008, when the current executive director joined Allegheny Family Network, there were 5 staff members of AFN. Today there are 45 AFN staff members, with 34 of them being family support partners, serving over 500 families per month through 5 programs, each of which has a different target population. Since 2008, AFN has grown significantly, but its mission remains the same. The mental health and other child-serving systems are complex and can be difficult to navigate, and many families are frightened and lack basic knowledge of most mental health diagnoses. However, families are being supported in ways that were not available to most families in the past. All AFN staff are family members who have learned how to navigate the system and advocate for their own children. As family support partners, they use their experience to support, inform, and empower families in need that are working to bring about positive change for their own children. One of the 5 programs is the Foster Family Support Program, which is funded as part of the Allegheny County Diligent Recruitment Initiative and became part of that initiative in 2014. The AFN Foster Family Support Program has 2 components: staffing of the Foster Parent Advisory Board and family support to foster families of adolescents. The Foster Parent Advisory Board is composed of 13 foster parents with experience in providing a family resource to adolescents, has met monthly since February 2015, and has participated with the Allegheny County Department of Human Service in the development of a request for proposals that was designed to develop foster care provider agencies that would focus on providing care to adolescents. Advised Allegheny County DHS on developing a marketing plan designed to recruit resource families for teens. Advised Allegheny County DHS on standards of care for adolescent foster care. Monitored placement of adolescents in congregate care, the number of which has gone from 142 in August of 2014 to 78 in January 2016. Developed in collaboration with Allegheny County DHS, a resource manual for foster families of adolescents. The foster family support component of Allegheny Family Network is composed of staff, a supervisor, and 2 family support partners, all of whom have substantial experience in providing foster care and adoption services to adolescents. Since beginning this activity, the AFN Foster Family Support Program has served more than 400 families. And with that, I will turn it over to Chris Rather, one of those 2 family support partners.
Hello, everyone. Myself and Linda Mitchell, we are the 2 family support partners. Linda could not be here today. My experience is that I have fostered 7 children. I have adopted 3 daughters. Okay? One of the ways in which we support families is that we help the foster parents navigate through the system with the knowledge that we ourselves have gained by being foster parents. Yet another way is by attending court hearings. Oftentimes, one will hear only a part of what is said or not understand fully what has been said. We are able to discuss this with the foster parents and make sure that they're on the same page. Yet another way that we assist them is through attending IEP meetings. Oftentimes, it's their first time in going to one of these, so they're not sure, but we are there to help them with this. We make sure that they understand everything that is said that the child needs, and we follow through with them to make sure that the schools are providing the services that have been established that they are in need of. Also, we do placement stability. When you know you're not alone, you gain strength. As an FSP, we share our personal experiences to show foster parents, yes, this happens, and maybe you want to try my method of dealing with it because it worked for me. It just might help you. At this time, I would like to introduce one of our foster parents. Ms. Cox, if you could speak.
Hi. Excuse me. My name is Nancy Cox. And I just want to say a few things specifically about what, first of all, AFN has helped me with. While in foster care, while I was doing, well, first of all, I am a mother of 9, 6 adopted, 3 biological. I've been a foster parent for over 20 years, and I've fostered close to 50 children during my career of being a foster parent. I was so happy and excited to learn about AFN. They've helped me. I had a couple young men come stay at my house, and when they came to my house, they had bed bugs and stuff, and so I had to get rid of all my furniture and stuff. And AFN was so gracious to come in and help me financially, as far as for helping me replace furniture, clothing, bed clothing. They were good with helping me do things like that. Also, I was so excited and so happy to meet Miss Chris Rathers. She was right on time. She's always courteous, always makes herself available to support me no matter what I need. I have a little story that I wanted to tell about Miss Chris. The area that we're in is it's kind of rough, and so we had Miss Chris happened to come to my home to see one of the children, and it just so happened that one of my friends, who's also a foster parent, one of her sons had been murdered the day before, and Miss Chris just happened to be there. And I can see why she's so valuable to this organization. She's right on time. She's helping move furniture, giving up her own finances to support them if they needed anything. She gave her blessing and let them know if they need anything they can call her. And that was just on her own, so that's just letting you know the type of people that they hire here are very caring and giving and supportive. And it's a blessing to have this organization, because without this organization, I don't know what people like me would do right now. It's different now. I started foster parenting in around 1990, and this is 2017, and the dynamics of everything has changed as far as foster parenting. So I just consider this a blessing to be part of this program, or to have this program for the foster parents. I appreciate everything that they do for us.
If we could just take a moment, and I see that one of our polling questions is coming up, so I want to go to that. And the polling question is, how does customer service influence the supportive culture of the agency for caregivers and for youth? And again, I'll repeat what the polling question is. How does customer service influence the supportive culture of the agency for caregivers and youth? Okay, I'm starting to see people are writing some things. I see foster parents feel that they are heard, definitely. Positive customer service is required. I'm seeing all kinds of great answers. Wonderful. Good customer service ensures the foster parents feel supported, and that's really important. We want to make sure that our foster parents feel supported. And then I see something that says lack of customer service and communication drives foster parents away. And we certainly don't want that. We don't want to drive them away. And when we think about customer service, it can be something as basic as just returning a phone call, saying thank you, I appreciate what you do, connecting them to the right services like a family support partner. I see so many great answers up there. It makes them feel valued. And that's really what we want. We want our foster parents to feel valued. We want them to know that we are in this together. We're a team. So at this time, I am going to turn it back over to Chris, who is going to finish up. Thank you so much for all your wonderful responses.
Okay, my final thought is on our support group for families. This is something that is very necessary. We're trying to grow our family support group at this time. We're only having it like every other month, but we want it to be at least once a month because the foster parents need additional support. They need a place where they can go to and be with other foster parents and discuss what's going on in their homes. When they share this information, they gain strength.
Hi everyone, this is Heather. I'm just going to talk about our data a little bit. So our preliminary analysis reveals that placements for families served by the family support partners are more stable compared to placements for other families. Allegheny County Department of Human Services examined placement stability for families served by Allegheny Family Network's 2 resource family support partners. Of the 421 families who the partners reached out to, which was 139, 33% agreed to services. Of the 421 families who the partners reached out to, 139 families, which is 33%, agreed to service. So between March 2015 and October 2016, 109 families were served. The placement stability rate for families who received support from the Resource Family Support Partners was 66%. Placement stability was measured by calculating the number of youth who had a subsequent placement in an equally restrictive or more restrictive environment following service from the Resource Parent Support Partners. 67% of youth served by the Resource Support Partners were teenagers. For these teens, the placement stability rate was 58%. In comparison, the placement stability rate for other families serving youth in care during this time was 53%. For teens not served by the Resource Parent Support Partners between March 2015 and October 2016, the placement stability rate was 44%, showing that those working with the Resource Parent Support Partners were 14% more stable.
So in closing, what we've learned from this process is a quote I'd like to share from William Glasser. You can't change the direction of the wind, but you can always adjust your sail. Here in Allegheny County, we're working diligently to adjust our sail to make sure that we're hearing what our foster parents have to say and that we're supporting them. So at this time, I'd like to pass the torch of excitement to Lee, Meredith, and Marcia from New York.
So, hi everyone, this is Lee Lounsbury from New York, and that was a very interesting presentation. Thanks so much. With me are Meredith Osta. She is our program director of Fostering Futures New York, and a very skilled and experienced foster parent, Marcia Anderson. And we're going to tell you about a new and we think very innovative program here in New York called Fostering Futures New York. And we're so appreciative of the diligent recruitment grant that went to the New York State Office of Children and Family Services that helps in part fund this program and helped us get it off the ground. So we appreciate that support. In short, if we go to the next slide, the Fostering Futures program is designed to provide support to foster, practical support and assistance to foster families who are, of course, responsible for the safe care of children. And I'm sure everyone on the phone knows about the children who come into care and their background, so we won't read these slides to you. We want to get right to what our program model is. It's fairly straightforward, fairly easy, although labor-intensive to start a program like this. After the first year of startup, it's relatively low cost, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. We can go to the next slide on the program model. Here, I'll just do an overview of what the program model is and some of the outcomes we're looking for, and then Meredith will get more into the detail of the program. Marcia will tell you her experience as a foster parent participating in the program, and we will wrap up with some lessons learned and then show you a short video that a volunteer developed for us that helps explain our program as well. So in short, just high level, we recruit small teams of volunteers from community organizations, including faith-based organizations, but not limited to faith-based. Each team is trained, supported, coordinated. The role of the coordinator with our teams is very important. Meredith will talk about that. Each team is then matched with a foster family who is eligible for the program, and we will talk about the criteria for foster parents to participate. We do not certify or license the foster parents. That is done by the public and private agencies in our area. We partner closely with those agencies, and that partnership has gone very, very well. So they refer the foster families to us. We recruit, support, coordinate the teams, and it's really a joint partnership between our program and the public and private foster care agencies. Each team, including the foster parents, meet monthly, and the goal is for the volunteers to listen carefully to what the foster parents need, see if the volunteers can provide that, and then a schedule is developed for the upcoming month. And you'll see there what some of the typical tasks are that foster parents ask for. A key component of this program is that unlike many child welfare services, quite frankly, volunteers are trained and supported in checking their judgments at the door and listening carefully to what foster parents need. Foster parents are the experts in the care of the children in their home, and volunteers are there to support that to the extent that they can and not provide advice or suggestions. High level, that is our program model. What we're hoping, goals of the program are on the next slide, and we are just beginning to measure some of these. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We do have an evaluator through the Diligent Recruitment Grant, which is Child Trends out of Washington, D.C. Within the resources available, they are helping measure some of these outcomes, but I'm not going to read the bullets to you. You can see those there, but starting by helping reduce stress in foster families. Some foster families report some social isolation, and our volunteers become, over time, often almost like extended family for foster families. We anticipate, and so far have seen, fewer requests from foster parents with teams to have children removed from their homes. So that promotes stability for children in care, which of course is a federal goal and all of our goals. We are optimistic that with teams, foster parents will be willing to continue fostering longer than they might have otherwise, supporting foster parent retention. Through the program, we're able to help keep sibling groups together, help children in foster care have additional healthy relationships with the adult volunteers, have additional enrichment activities, and a key piece of our model is that the team will stay with the family through and beyond adoption if the family wants them there. So again, the family calls the shots here, but at least in New York and I think many other states, a number of child welfare services end at adoption, and our program does not. If the family wants us there beyond adoption, we're there. So that's a very quick, high-level overview of the goals of the program. And now on the next slide, I'm going to turn this over to Meredith Osta, our program director, and she'll give us some of the details of the program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. As Lee had mentioned earlier, each team has a program coordinator. Coordinators are really a critical piece of our model. Coordinators are responsible for everything from going out into the community, presenting information about our program, and hopefully recruiting teams from many different community organizations. We've found in our first several years of startup that this can be a very lengthy process, and it can take anywhere from 6 months or longer to recruit a team. Coordinators also facilitate the application process and the background checks. Our background clearance is very comprehensive. We actually contract with a commercial investigation agency who helps us facilitate that. We check everything from state and federal criminal history to also checking with the state central registry to make sure that there are no indicated reports for our volunteers. We provide 3 hours of training for each volunteer. Our training is one which covers a basic overview of child welfare. Many of our volunteers are from all different walks of life, and many are not familiar with what is it to be a foster parent. They're not familiar with the process in which a child comes into care. So our training reviews that, but more importantly, I think our training really focuses on supporting our foster parents in a very non-judgmental way. This is something that we really strive to ensure that every foster parent is receiving from their team is unjudgmental support and, most importantly, listening. We also work with all of our partner agencies, which here where we are in New York, currently we work with our 3 local Department of Social Services and several voluntary placement agencies. And those are partner agencies, ones in which help us facilitate the referrals of our foster families. The coordinator will also interview the foster families that are referred from our partner agencies and help the matching process, which means that they have a team that is trained. They will determine if it's going to be a good fit between the team and the foster family, and they will set up those meetings, which we call match meetings. And usually within the first month or so, that's when the introductions will take place. The team will meet the family, then we'll schedule additional meetings so that the team meets the family and the children in the home. Beyond that, once the teams are initially matched with their family, the coordinator's role is very important. The coordinator is going to be the person that is going to schedule the monthly team meeting, that is going to document all of the activities that are going to happen for the month moving forward. They're going to take those notes, they're going to share those notes with the family, with the volunteers, and they're going to make sure that things stay on track for the month ahead. So if any issues arise or if there's any questions or concerns, the coordinator is there to answer that. And I would like to add, too, that I think one thing that our partner agency and our sponsoring organizations really like about our program is that there's no additional burden on them. Our coordinators really take on the role of we're going to train the volunteers, we're going to do the background clearances, and then we're also going to provide ongoing team development and support. So if we move on to our next slide, creating a team. So we just talked a little bit about how our teams are recruited. So a little more detail on that. We look to community organizations. This does include some faith-based organizations, but we also have teams within workplace organizations. So any organization that really is service and community-minded would be a great candidate for a team of volunteers. So why recruit from an organization? We've had that question from people in the past. Well, you know, what if we have just why can't an individual volunteer and be added maybe with some other individuals? We found that it's very important to have a team of volunteers that share some bond, that they share some values or some core ideals. We found that this is important because in most cases they already have a pretty strong connection built. So we're not spending time creating relationships amongst the team members itself, but instead our time is spent on developing a bond between these volunteers and their families. We talked a little bit on the last slide about the rigorous background check, and it is very rigorous. As I mentioned earlier, it's state and federal. We do sex offender registry, motor vehicle, and we also do our state central registry here in New York. So what do our volunteers agree to? So we ask our volunteers coming in for a minimum of a 1-year commitment. I think this is very important because our program is not just about volunteers doing concrete things for a family once or twice a month, you know, laundry or a meal or spending time, but it's really so much more than that. And when we get to our foster parent, Marcia, she can speak to this, but it's really about building relationships. It's really about becoming an extended family with the foster family. And as we all know, when a relationship is new, there's obviously time that it's going to take for that bond to be built and for the trust to develop. So we ask for a 1-year commitment and a minimum of 1 contact per month with the family. So if you have a team of 5 or 6 people, then that foster family is going to have a minimum of 5 or 6 contacts per month. We have a 1-hour team meeting, as I mentioned earlier. So once a month, everyone gets together, and this is a time to really reflect on the month before, to talk about what went really well, and maybe share some ideas about what could be changed for the following month. All right, and if we can move on to the next slide, please, for the foster families. So while we'd love to work with every foster family, because we truly believe that every foster family deserves to have a team and could benefit from it, unfortunately, we can't at this time. So we've determined that we're going to work with a certain subset, if you will, of foster families. So we work with those that have at least 1 year of experience fostering. And what we've learned from that is that, as we all know, that when foster parents, usually in that first year, that's going to be a time when they're really going to be able to determine if this is something that they want to move forward with or not. So we feel like after the first year of fostering, that probably that foster family is going to be one that's going to continue for a while. Are known to provide quality foster care. So we ask our partner agencies, when we ask for referrals, we say, look to those families. Who are those families that you're going to call at 3 o'clock in the morning and ask to take the sibling group of 3, 4, or 5 children? And they say yes. Those are the types of foster families that we are working with currently, the ones that the counties and agencies would be devastated if those families stopped fostering. So what types of children are those families generally taking? Well, if you look, we have 3 categories. Sibling groups. I think we all can certainly understand why it's so important to keep sibling groups together, and we really want to support those families that are taking in those sibling groups, and we are seeing a lot of larger sibling groups that have been coming into care. Adolescents, and also children with physical or behavioral health challenges. So what do our teams do? So this really looks different for every team. And again, when we get to Marcia, she's going to talk a little bit about her experience with her team of 2 years now. But we look to the foster parents. When we meet with foster parents, we say, how can a team support you? And, I just have to say, in working with all of the teams that we have now, across the board, they always identify individual time with children as a priority. And we don't differentiate from if there's birth, foster, or adopted children in the home. Many of our families are blended families, and they look all different ways. And if the foster parents want our teams to work with all of the children, then that's what our teams do. So some typical tasks you'll see there, homework help, meal preparation. I mean, meals, that's really a big one as well, because everybody, I think, can understand on a crazy, hectic night when you have, appointments and children need to be places, but just to get a meal in the middle of that is just such a huge support. Laundry, household repairs. We have had some volunteers who were handy. Actually, they did redo a bathroom for a foster family that just didn't have the time or resources to get to it. Enrichment activities with the kids. We have many families that have many children, and sometimes it's hard if you have one that's maybe doing dance and one that's doing Little League or baseball to figure out how you're going to get everybody to all their different places. Well, that's what our volunteers do. They will step in. They will help transport on occasion if that's what's being requested. They'll go to games or to activities just so that when those children look out, they see 3, 4, or 5 additional people sitting out there cheering for them if they have a game or a play. So over time, many of our teams become just like extended family. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to Marcia Anderson. Marcia has been a foster parent, I think, for over 15 years. and she's been a foster parent working with a Fostering Futures team for 2 years.
Hi, my name is Marcia Anderson. I currently have 6 kids that are adopted, 3 birth children, and also kids that come in and out of care in my home. My husband and I have been fostering for 16 years. In the last 2 years, we are fortunate enough to have this program called Fostering Futures call and ask us if we'd like to be part of it, and of course we jumped at that. The reason we jumped at that is because we are really on the tail end of fostering. We've adopted 6 kids. They all have different varying behaviors and needs and different appointments and baseball and dance, as she said. So the way that it worked is we all met before the kids met them. We all met together in a group, all the volunteers that were trained to come to our home, and we talked about coming into our home to have a little ice cream social. And so they all put on name tags, our whole group, a team that was coming to our house, and they came to our home. And, of course, the kids fell in love with everybody. And from that point on, they really ended up becoming family in our home. They've been there for 2 years. We definitely, the difference between having a team and not having a team is huge. We were willing to continue fostering when we were at a point where we really couldn't do that anymore, just because of the volume of the kids that we have in our home and the appointments and things. So as it went, the volunteers came into our home. They each kind of took up their special needs of how they, what's important to them, and picked it up with the kids, and they clicked with the kids. And some of the things that we do at our home with them, the kids come in home from school, and they'll have somebody help them with their homework, somebody that's over there volunteering. The kids know all the volunteers. They actually have memorized all their cards. They come running to the door when one of the volunteers comes. Also, we've had people help us fix, as she said, a bathroom. My husband's not really handy like that. He's excellent with kids, but he really isn't good at construction. And they also put in wonderful fire alarms the man did in our home, and fixed a dryer that really needed some work. Also, we've had people actually come with me up to the school and do an IEP with one of my children that I was having trouble with. That was really helpful. We've had people take them out to dinner. They've come to the baseball games. They've come to the concerts, and they've really bonded with the children. And actually, some of our older children really sometimes call the volunteers on their own, which I think is really nice. And that's what's important with Fostering Futures, is that these kids have as many healthy bonds as they can have besides my husband and I. As you know, when you have a bunch of kids, so many kids in your house, it's hard to get to each one individually and what their emotional needs are as well as their physical needs. We would never, ever probably foster again without a team, for sure. Would we ever adopt again? Or I think we would if we felt that there was a child that was fit into that, because there is a team in place, and will be even if we decide to stop fostering. So I think it's really important. One of the more important things too is, I think, as I think somebody mentioned earlier, it is really emotionally isolating to foster. Lots of times, because there's so much going on and only so many people are allowed to work with foster children. And this program allows people to be trained and come in and work with the foster kids, which opens up such a variety of things for the kids to do. And we definitely would never, ever go without a team. I love this program. I wish every foster family had this program. I think it's just such a huge benefit to fostering in New York. And I thank you.
Thanks, Marcia.
Marcia, thanks so much. I know we're running short on time. We have a couple more slides. I'll just hit the highlights, but I wanted to follow up on what Marcia said. I think a lot of people in the community, if they know about foster care at all, think you can either be a foster parent or there's no other way to help with foster care. And this program gives folks who are willing to help out and aren't going to be foster parents a concrete way to get involved. So you can read this next slide on program reach. We wanted to give you a sense of the pace at which we have been able to recruit teams. We've been in business now about 2 years, and we have 15 teams matched with foster parents, another 3 being either trained and matched. So that first year of developing the program, really, first 6 to 9 months, is networking and legwork. In the first year, we had just maybe 5 teams recruited. It takes a while, but then the pace does pick up. And at this point, our annual budget is $135,000 about, and at the end of the year, our per team cost will be about $5,400. And considering that each foster family has approximately 6 kids, 6 children in the home, that's a pretty reasonable cost in our opinion for the number of people served. And then our last slide just quickly talks about lessons learned and program challenges. Let me see what we haven't covered here. I think number 5, is the one we haven't touched on. I think it's the very point that the program is innovative means by definition it doesn't fit neatly into existing child welfare financing structure, at least in our state. So finding ways to sustain the funding of this program beyond the federal grant, beyond some state money we've been grateful to get. We do raise private money. So we really are trying to figure out the sustainability piece. And with that, we want to just show you about a 3-minute video that a volunteer of ours made that we use at training events and informational activities that really sums up our program. And then later we'll be happy to answer any questions. So thanks so much.
And as a reminder, if you are dialed in by phone, please unmute your computer speakers. The sound is being streamed from your computer or device.
We said our youngest child was going to be 5. We decided we would consider fostering. And when he turned 5, I was going through boxes and getting rid of all the little clothes. And I suddenly realized, oh, wait a minute, didn't we say we were going to do this?
What I've learned about foster care is the first thing that comes to mind is it's a lot of work. But the word work, I realize, isn't quite right either. That's the last thing they would call fostering is work. It's a commitment of love.
This is an extremely innovative approach to supporting foster parents.
The mother has often said, I don't know how we survived without this team. I don't know what we would have done. I don't know how we did it.
My kids love the members of our team. One of the members, the one who drives them to preschool, every time they see a blue car, my kids are like, that's Donna, that's Donna!
The team comes in and it's a fresh start. You just see these energy people coming in and like, let's go, let's get it done. Let's, get this going, and we want to do this, we want to do that. And that's what gives us our fresh start, because other than that, I don't know if we'd still be fighting the battle.
All of them? I would like to see all of our families have a Fostering Futures team.
It's been me and my wife's best decision, deciding to join.
You get more out of it than the family does that you're serving. You feel so good that you're going to be able to connect with these kids, give them support, because they've all come from horrific backgrounds and they really need the extra love and attention that you're able to do that. And you will walk away feeling enriched just to be part of the program.
Boy, it's hard to put into words, because it has to do with...
It's very hard for me to put in words the emotional connection you make with these kids.
Yeah.
It's just the most beautiful thing.
This is a chance to get involved with the children in New York who probably have had the fewest resources put into them. They're kids who often have fallen through the cracks.
I would say to someone who's considering to do this that it's probably the best decision they'll make of their life. It's probably the one thing that you can do that would have more impact on more people than any other thing you could do.
We signed up for a year, but I know as long as we're able, we'll be doing much more than that.
Well, thank you so much to all of our presenters for sharing so much great and valuable information about their programs, and we had a lot of questions coming up in the chat box, and so I wanted to make sure that we had some time devoted to doing that. And so I know some answers were happening in the chat box, but in case folks weren't following that, I'm just going to go ahead and read some off. And for the presenters, I'm just going to kind of take turns between the three of you. So starting with New Mexico, there was a lot of questions around the positions of the navigators, if they're volunteer or paid or a contract provider, and then also you know, about how many do you have employed and what's the average workload. So Isela or Renee, maybe you could answer that.
Sure, this is Renee. In New Mexico right now, currently we have 5 full-time employee navigator positions. These were formerly our recruitment positions, and we just redefined their job descriptions and made it this new role. And so they are amongst the state in our 5 different regions of the state. So it's 1 full-time employee per region, and then we currently have 7 contract positions, but we hope to be filling a couple more this next fiscal year to a maximum of 9 contract positions. Those are small purchase contracts, and those typically go to foster parents or any individuals who have had experience in child welfare. As far as the workload, in discussing the workload, you know, really varies by county and by region. I could say based on the data, their tracking tools, they are servicing anywhere from 20 families per month in our smaller counties, and that would be inclusive of relative and non-relative families, to in our metro region up to like 100 families a month, which is our primary area of inquiring families who call our 800 line to find out about becoming a foster parent. And they take it from that point forward to help that family be interested in the process. They help them from inquiry to application and try to engage them at that point, and then application to first placement.
Thanks so much, Renee. I also just wanted to take this moment to just remind folks to, in your Adobe platform, there is the PowerPoint for download, and there's also web links. So if you're interested in any of the additional information from the programs that spoke today, you can see the web links as well and go ahead and utilize those. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that. So Allegheny County, there was a question that came in around if the placement workers go to IEPs and court hearings as well.
As a family support partner, yes, I attend court hearings and IEPs. Our foster parents are permitted now to join in on these, and I think that's really something great, because before they were not, and that's the reason that they really need support partners, because they're not used to doing this type of thing.
Great, thanks. New York, there's a question that came in around how do you manage confidentiality for foster children and their families within community support teams?
Hi, this is Meredith. So what we do in New York is we have our volunteers sign confidentiality agreements, and the agreement goes, beyond just, not disclosing any information verbally or written, but we also really take great steps also to make sure that confidentiality is protected through photos and videos. I think that was one of our big concerns early on in this age of social media, and it's so easy to, snap a picture when you're enjoying something, but we ensure the confidentiality by having everybody sign confidentiality agreements as part of their volunteer application.
Great. Thanks, Meredith. Back to New Mexico, question about if you guys have any difficulty motivating applicants to complete the web lessons.
So this is Isela in New Mexico. Because our program is relatively new, we have continued to do focus groups, and so far there's a lot of excitement in the opportunity of being able to do training at your own pace, if you will. So I have not personally come across anybody that's kind of not following or not engaged in the process so far. That's not to say that it will not come, but as of now, I think things seem to be moving forward in the positive direction.
Wow, that's great. Okay, Allegheny County, do your family support folks assist foster and biological parents with their relationship in any way?
We are available for the parents as well as the foster parents, but our main focus is on the foster parents.
So we do in Allegheny County do something called icebreaker meetings, and that is work that does support the relationship between what we call the triad, the foster parent, the birth parent, and also that child.
Great, thanks. For New York, there's a question around how many people are on the fostering family team, and how many foster homes do they service, and how often do they have contact?
So great question. So our smallest team has 4 members. Our largest team has 10. I would say the average is 6 members on a team. We feel more comfortable with having an average of 6 members because, we use a team approach for an obvious reason so that, the burden is not on just 1 or 2 people, but that whatever the needs of the foster family are, that they're easily able to be managed by a team. So we find that 6 is usually been our average number. And what was the next question you had?
How many families does it serve? One.
Yeah.
Oh, how many families does the team serve? So each team is matched with 1 family. So, for instance, when you heard from Marcia, so Marcia was matched with her team going on with 2 years actually this month. So that same team has been with Marcia for the duration and will continue to be.
And then how often do volunteers have contact?
And volunteers have contact. So that's a great question. It varies. So we ask our volunteers to make a minimum of 1 contact per month, and I mentioned before it can look a lot of different ways, a meal, time in the home. But we do have some volunteers that, because they have the time and the availability that they can spend, 6 to 8 to 10 hours a month in the home. It's really about the individual volunteer schedule and flexibility. But we ask them to commit to 1 contact a month with the family.
Great, thanks. I'm going to just do a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. New Mexico, there was a couple of questions that came in around the Facebook page that you all have, around who monitors the Facebook page. Is it a state employee or a foster parent or somebody else?
Okay, hi, this is Ella again in New Mexico. So the Facebook page is monitored through the contractor. It's not any of the state employees. Foster parents clearly needed to feel like there's a level of confidentiality that is not involved the state. So it is the contractor, is the family advocates. They monitor if there's anything that really shouldn't be posted or up there, they remove it. But we also have what is called a warm line. So if there's anything that needs to be discussed that is not a crisis, foster parents can call that line as well. So it's through the contractor.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, our final question I'm going to throw to Allegheny County. The question was around if your folks complete a certain certification or process, or do they have to have a certain type of degree?
Are you asking about our employees? If that is the question, then everyone who works here has to have raised a child with mental health or behavioral concerns.
Great, thank you. Yes, perfect. And I recognize we didn't get to all the questions, but we have them all written down, and we will make sure that we get with all the presenters and get the questions answered and make sure to send back out to all of you. I do want to just remind folks there is an evaluation link that we'd love for you guys to fill out. We'd love to hear your feedback about today's webinar. I want to say thank you so much to all of our presenters for all of their amazing information that they shared today and for all of your guys' fantastic participation. Taffy, was there anything else you wanted to say before we close out?
No, I just want to again thank all the presenters and especially the foster parents that were able to be with us today. And I just appreciate everybody also visiting the National Foster Care Month website. We've got a lot of really great information on there for professionals, for foster parents, for birth families, etc.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all again for joining us for today's National Foster Care Month webinar on supporting caregivers while promoting positive outcomes, and we hope you all have a great rest of your day.